And you're getting a video with the trophy.
Oh, I'm so excited. We try every week. Just the two of us.
All right. Welcome to episode 21, Retro Bar Podcast. And this morning we have our first two-time guest. We were a little hard up for a guest this week. And
there's always a backup plan there.
Yeah, there's probably, well, maybe a little more than 12 hours ago, we secured a guest for today. Annaruth is back for her second stint in, 3 weeks? 4 weeks?
Yeah.
Less than a month for sure.
Yes.
And her only requirement was she wanted a picture with the trivia trophy. So I'm going to do her one better. She's getting the whole video with it sitting right there. They come to trivia. Her and her husband are faithful attenders of Thursday night trivia. And they do their best. And like I tell everybody, it ain't all about your score. It's the fun you have and the, what you learn. And they have yet to get their picture with the trophy, so now she's getting a whole video.
Yeah, well, I'm right there with you.
Yeah,
one time we actually just took it. We took pictures with it.
Yes.
And then put it back.
The important thing is they put it back.
Yeah.
It did get stolen. Well, some girl from another venue did the same thing after they did it, though. But yeah, so you never know.
Setting a bad precedent.
I don't know.
Yeah, you would think ex-cops would have no better behavior.
Stealing.
Paul, he wasn't there last night. He had a cemetery meeting.
Yeah.
He's on a cemetery committee.
Yep.
That's interesting. What does the cemetery committee do?
I'll make sure. Yeah, we were just going over that. Make sure that everything is running properly, like making sure that the lawn care is done. That if somebody passes, to make sure that we're ready to take care of business.
Oh, is it like a local cemetery?
Mm-hmm.
Or like,
yeah, it's in Akron, so yeah.
Interesting. I didn't know that they had cemetery committees. I learned something now.
Somebody's got to take care of it, right? So I'm new to this particular committee. There's been guys that have been on the committee for years and years and years, and they're very good at what they do. Nobody complains.
That's it. Well, I wouldn't. There's probably survivors that have
that. Yes,
it's just
generally
the owner.
It's not a lot of feedback from
But
at least you hope not, right?
No, right. Yeah. We did talk about having a cemetery, haunted tour. That would be cool, but no.
That would be interesting. I wouldn't go. I hate scary stuff and haunted things. Like that's not my deal. But it sounds really interesting.
Oh, I love haunted stuff. Absolutely.
Oh, there you go.
Him and his ghosts.
Well, I don't know.
I don't know about that, but.
I wished I'd see a ghost if there was such a thing.
I
don't want to be tormented by a ghost, but I'd like to see a ghost.
I think you have to go to their house.
Oh, yeah.
You wouldn't expect to see one here or at Black Forest.
No, because it's too
right. Exactly.
And as far as I know, nobody was killed at either place or died at either place.
Right. So you would probably have to go to where they are.
Right.
We lived in a house in Ohio, and it was built in 1900. It says 1900 literally, and it was haunted. And oh my gosh, I would be there at nights on my own because my ex-husband worked night shift, so I'd be there by myself, and I'd hear somebody walking, and I'd text him, and I'd be like, "Hey, are you home?" And he's like, "No, I'm at work." And the kids were in bed or they were always my daughter always slept with me. She doesn't like to admit that, but she was in my bed until she was 5. And then she was like, "Oh, maybe I'll sleep somewhere else." But yeah, and one time we were out and we had a babysitter and she texted me. She's like, "Oh, are you guys home now?" And I was like, "No." And she's like, "Someone is walking around downstairs." And so she went to check it out and there wasn't anybody there. So I was like, "I'm done. I don't do haunted stuff." That was enough.
Well, actually, speaking of Black Forest, but in the inn itself, the 1777 house, they claim, they've had incidents where they heard people walking. White Swan had many stories of random cups being lifted up and flying across the room. Now, I back in the day spent plenty of time there, but never saw anything like that. But normally it always seemed to happen maybe after they were closed. But there was one time where a little kid, I don't know how old, but a young kid asked the owner, they were in the dining room section where the stairway goes to the upstairs, and this little kid asked the owner, if he can go upstairs and play with the other kids up there.
Oh
and
my gosh.
and he said, "What are you talking about? Well, I just saw a kid walk up the steps. What's up there?" You know,
Nice.
yeah.
Oh,
That's good.
man.
But yeah, I never saw any.
Like Elizabeth at the cloister. She
Yeah.
said if she happens to be there late at night locking up, she will say
She's
respectfully,
going home
"Good night, and we'll see you tomorrow." And she'll talk to him like everything's good.
because she said if she doesn't do that, that she can't get the alarm set.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I believe it. Like I've seen, like I've like been around some crazy enough stuff, and like my son, like definitely he was like, well, why are there all these holes like in the tree? Like, can I go through the hole in the tree? And I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, well, people are going in those holes there. And I'm like, I'm not seeing holes. I'm like, okay. Like, I'm like, all right, you know. And they've heard like people walking around too, music playing, like in a couple houses. This new house we moved to, I found out the woman lost her son, and I was like, John, if this person died in the house, we're going to have to back out of this sale. And he's like, are you crazy? I'm like, no, I can't do it. Like, I can't handle this stuff.
Right.
I don't like I really don't like to be scared. So thankfully for both her and I, her son passed at the hospital.
Yes.
But I was just like, if this
In the house you live in now.
Yes, in the house I live in now, and they were the original owners. So I also knew that like nothing else had gone on there. So, and it has been very peaceful, and I have not heard weird things going on for the most part. So we did have someone knocking on our windows at like 11 o'clock at night, and like again, John was like, "You guys are crazy." He's always like such a rational person. Yes, it is. He's always like, "That's not happening. Why would someone knock on our windows at 11?" I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I was just like, I happened to be up and hear it.
A lot of things on there happen.
I know. I'm like, if I knew why it was happening, I'd probably make it stop because it's kind of creepy. And so that went on for like 3 weeks. And
then school started.
And they, yeah, exactly. Well, it was over one of those periods that like a lot of kids were out of school, and I was like, boys, did you like piss somebody off? And it was like definitely someone knocking on the window. Like it was very distinct, and we don't have any trees like on that side. That would be touching it. So yeah, I don't like to be scared, but these events keep happening. So maybe I'll just like send all that like your way. So something interesting.
Yeah, I don't need to hear noises. I would like have you ever actually like you hear a lot, and mostly that's seems to be the case that a lot of people hear things, not so much see an actual shape dressed in clothing. Because that was always my thing. Like, why are they dressed in? Like, if you see supposedly a Civil War period ghost, it's wearing the clothing that it would have been wearing when it was alive. Yeah. And Paul's heard this story many times, but I always think if you see that and they're dressed in that period, are you really seeing their spirit in today's world, or are you somehow looking back in time, seeing them when they're still alive? Like, are you having the ability to look back in time, and maybe it's not a ghost, maybe it's them still alive doing what they would have normally done on a daily basis. It's just you're looking back in time.
That is an amazing theory. I really like that. I like
because
it.
Why would a spirit of somebody who passed away still be appearing in clothing they were wearing back when they were alive?
Right. Like, why wouldn't they update it or
anything? Who would know what they would be wearing? But why would they appear like they looked 200 years ago? Yeah. Unless you're looking back in time when they're actually dressed in that clothing.
So when you see your ghost, it's going to have purple hair.
Well, I don't know what. I mean, I don't know what a spirit that you would see, and maybe there's a difference. Yeah. Maybe if you're hearing noises, it's just the spirit that you can't really see because it's not dressed in anything. And then maybe if you're seeing something dressed in, that's when you're looking back in time. I mean, maybe there's two whole different realms.
Maybe they're just appealing to what they think you want to see too.
Oh, maybe.
And then maybe you'd see someone in modern clothes or something. But I like the idea. It's kind of like a time.
Yeah, like you're just looking back
portal.
In time.
Yeah. That's really interesting. I really like to think about those kinds of things.
No, that's
so I'm into like Marvel.
You're welcome back again.
No, I mean like that's just really interesting because like I like Marvel with like.
See, I don't even look at comic books.
Okay, well,
but, I mean, not for any particular reason. I just don't.
I mean, I can't say that I'm like an aficionado and I've read all the comic books or anything, but they talk about like different like universes and like like these space and time that you can go
Yeah,
through and stuff.
yeah.
And I always think it's very interesting. I mean, there's a lot of modern books on that too.
So
and
if
like,
I did a picture round of Marvel comics, you would do all right at that.
I think I do okay. Depends on the day and my memory that day,
Oh,
though.
okay,
So
all right.
sometimes it's really good, and other days I'm like, yeah, I don't even know what my name is. So, but yeah, I do love Marvel. But I like the thought of like there's other universes and stuff. And so like I grew up like evangelical Christian. I don't know if we said that before. And so like kind of like the spirit stuff is like there, but like it was very much like, ooh, we don't talk about that. We don't do that kind of thing. So that was my background. And then we were talking about aliens. Okay. I was at this camp one time.
She brought it up, not me. She brought it up.
Well, no, I mean, no. It just kind of on that same train of thought. We don't have to go down this road. But like just that, like their theory was like if there was other life on other planets, like would they have like another savior? So that was also like a really interesting, or would it still be the same, or you know what I mean, like how like religion ties into it, because we are so focused on our own. Like, do you think like
I would think ultimately whatever created us created them at the ultimate end of the creation pyramid, if you will. Because my thinking is, there's theories, particularly along the ancient alien lines, that life on Earth was created by, and many cultures, legends, from people from the stars.
Mm-hmm.
Now, those people from the stars may have come down here, may have monkeyed with ape genetics, may have done whatever, and created humans for whatever reason, to experiment with us, to use us as workers back in the day. But that group of whatever they were that created us maybe weren't directly, it wasn't like God directly, but indirectly sent them to do it.
Yeah. Yes.
And saying maybe there was a whole different set of people that created life somewhere else in the universe. But ultimately, it was the decision of the guy at the top to do it.
I like it.
Guy, spirit, whatever. But I mean, obviously, like even Jesus, and I fully believe there was a man named Jesus walking on earth, but he was obviously, according to the Bible and everything else, technically immaculately conceived.
Right.
So was he indeed like the world's first test tube baby or artificial insemination?
That's funny.
I mean, and I'm not.
No,
I'm not trying to
I like
dish
it.
Jesus.
But,
no, but if he wasn't created by a man and woman on earth,
right,
divine intervention, and somehow he was created and had whatever abilities he seemed to have when he was on earth, maybe also were given to him by the same people who made Mary pregnant.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting, because I always thought about like him having like half her DNA, but that doesn't really even make sense, right? Like, I mean, it really probably should have just all been like,
he could have been any color, like everybody, and I fully,
that's also true.
like our depiction here in America, well, in the Christian, Jesus is always depicted this white, long-haired guy, but he lived in the Middle East.
Right, he would have stuck out.
Well, right, he would have. Now, or was it? Did he even look anything like we depict him? Did he look right like it? Did he look totally different than that and a Middle Eastern person? But you're right. If he would have looked totally out of, like, if he would have had green skin, he would have stood out, and he probably would have never been able to accomplish what he did, because they probably would have did away with him.
Right, it would have been too
some
weird.
Green guy, yeah. So he had to look. I mean, even if he was playing by some other realm, he had to look similar. To do what he did, he needed to look similar to life on Earth. He couldn't have been some weird. But then all those statues in Egypt and the Incas with men's bodies with bird heads and all that. But that all was before the flood.
Right.
And that's why the flood happened, was to get rid of all those failed experiments, basically.
I'm loving your theories right now. I have so much to think about. Like, I'm never going to sleep like for the next 2 days.
Well, next week we're going to have James T. Kirk on from Star Trek.
No, actually next week we're having Pastor Brad Hall from St. John's UCC.
Well, you know what? We'll have both of them. You know, I really get the full effect.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely write down some of these questions and have him like do some commentary on your like stuff like that. I just like I am a very like open person. I just really love theories.
I'm not sitting here saying anything that I'm spewing out is fact.
Right.
I just like spewing it out to get people to think about stuff.
Yeah.
Like I'm not necessarily like this is the way it was. You know, I don't know how it was. But,
I don't know. That's always my problem. Like I just am such a factual person. Like I want facts. Like I'm open to all ideas, but like for me to be like, yes, I'm going to stand behind this thing. Like I need like solid proof, and I have a really hard time. I'm not a very trusting like person.
Right. Well, it brings up like the did we land on the moon?
Exactly.
Well, do you really know?
I don't know.
I mean, were you on that capsule? Like, how do you really know?
I'll throw this out here, and John is watching, my husband, and he's gonna cringe at this. But I have looked into the flat Earth theory because I find it so interesting. I mean, if we didn't land on the moon, have we been into space? I haven't been there. How do I know?
No.
And you can recreate like a lot of this stuff with camera effects and like.
Well, there is a legitimate.
Well, okay, so here. So I have a.
Sorry, John.
So I have I guess greater, what is our purpose here? Like, what are we doing? Maybe tie in that we're being used. I mean, maybe a little matrix going on and we're being farmed, and a little bit of I also have told John that I think math is fake because basically we've made it up, and then people make up equations and then they have to prove the equations. Well, they can't always prove the equations. So and he's like, oh, well, everything's divisible by this or that. And the Fibonacci sequence.
I mean, not only that, but I mean, we had to make everything up. Why is that pink? Who decided that's going to be called pink?
Exactly.
Why ain't it silver?
Yeah.
Where'd all that come from?
Right. And then so we go to space and we say oh, the world is round. So then people don't panic. Because don't you think so if the earth was flat, okay, wouldn't people panic and think that they could fall off the earth and that would really make that, because again, we theorized that the earth was round before we could go to space.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, how did they figure that out? Fake math. Because they're saying oh, the angle of the earth, and you can calculate it this way and that. Okay, but you made up that math.
You made up a formula that gives you an answer you were looking for.
Exactly. And that's my point. So I'm why do we trust anything?
Well, there is a legitimate, and this is actually a scientific, there's actually scientists that have, to some degree, again, probably made up the whatever proof, but that the entire universe is actually a 2D hologram.
Yeah.
And not just Earth or whatever. And how do we really know how far away something is?
Math.
What
that
if,
we made up.
Well, right. But what if now? Let's say we've sent. Let's say a
Paul's
spaceship. The furthest we ever sent anything was in our solar system, which is such a little speck of. But what if our solar system, and let's just say there's a couple stars and whatever out there. And then we're boxed in a cube that is mirrors. It would look immense. The first time I ever went to a casino in Atlantic City, there was a wall that was all mirrors.
Yeah.
And not knowing any better, no, I didn't walk into the mirror. But when I walked in, I thought, Jesus, this thing goes on forever. And then I realized it was a mirror. So if the entire universe was a very smaller space than we think it is, but we were in a cube where all the insides were mirrors, it would reflect everything, and it would look like there's billions of stars out there. Yeah. And it would only take a couple stars to make it look that way.
Right.
Because you'd have a mirror looking into a mirror, looking back and forth. Oh. It would just...
What was that movie? Was it Truman?
That was inside the dome.
See, a lot of people say that was interesting. Well, I don't watch any. I never saw that movie.
Okay, so you have to watch the Truman Show. Have you watched The Matrix?
No.
Okay, so homework. You have to watch The Truman Show and The Matrix. And like
Yeah,
it's not like unthought of. I just
no.
but it's also like I guess always like I go back to like what's the point? Like why
Yeah.
why
Yeah.
are we here?
Yeah.
What are we
Well,
doing?
why are we here? I mean, and our like a soul, like, are we here as in a body now because our soul wanted to learn some kind of lesson, predetermined, and so whatever happens to us is happening to try and teach us that lesson and see how we react to it.
Yes.
And then I always was sort of, okay, now we each have our own soul, and I don't doubt that in one, at all. But is our soul inside of our skin, or is our soul all over the place, just controlling our physical body from outside? So, like when you die, your physical body that's trying to learn a lesson for your soul, does your soul actually leave your body, or does your body just die and your soul stays right where it is to move on to whatever else it's doing?
Well, that would make sense with ghosts then, right?
Well, if a soul and a ghost are the same thing, I don't know.
I mean, you can
see,
theorize that, and they
I
can
think
like
there's all
continue
different
on.
levels of stuff.
Yeah.
Like it isn't just here and then one more level, heaven. I think there's all sorts of different realms. We just can't, because our eyes only see such a small portion of the entire. There could be 6 people in this room that we don't know are there because we can't see them because they're out of the spectrum we can see.
Right.
And maybe that's why cats
are
and
so
dogs.
weird.
Maybe
yeah.
that's why my dog barks at things I don't like. I think he's
True.
barking at nothing, but maybe there's something there.
Paul's like,
I'm looking to see which one I'm gonna have here. I'm like, which one is gonna make this a little better?
All right, I did want to ask you just to give
Well,
Paul peace of mind.
Hold on. You might as well give her the full Monty, right?
What's next?
What's next? Well, ask her, this will blow her mind. Ask her about the parrot.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
This was on last week's podcast because we had emergency event text. But
Yeah.
this is something I thought about before they were on the show, but since they were animal people. But parrot, a talking one.
Okay.
One that has, I have friends in Lidditz that have one that I've never seen it in person, but they say like in the morning it knows to say good morning.
Mhm.
Different situations make it say different things, but it says them at the right time based on the situation.
Right.
So it must put some thought into why it's saying what it's saying.
Mhm.
So if a parrot learned enough vocabulary, would you be able to sit down and let's say the parrot grew up in Africa and then it came over here in a pet store and it learned to speak? Would you be able to sit down and ask that parrot, assuming it knew all the words, like what was life in Africa like, and could it answer you?
Ooh, that's interesting.
Like, does it have the intelligence to say, well, it wasn't bad, but I like it better here because I get fed?
That would be amazing. Oh my gosh, please someone train your parrot all the right words and ask them, because like that would be so cool.
Well, if
In theory, like you're right, it could happen.
I disagree. I completely disagree. I think the parrot just repeats what you say, and that's all it knows.
and well, but see, a parrot is the only animal I know that can actually speak in human language.
Well, chimpanzees, they've trained enough to do sign language that they can have
Right.
conversations,
Right.
but verbalize.
So, right.
Yes.
And if with a chimpanzee, is the reason it's not verbally saying something, is it because it doesn't have that intelligence, or its vocal cords just don't allow it to do it? Like, is a chimpanzee almost like a person that had a stroke, that in their mind they know what they want to spit out, but they can't anymore?
Right. Yeah, that would be really awful. All these interesting things to think about.
Well, even maybe every animal in its head
Right.
is, damn, I wish I could tell them this. My foot hurts or whatever. And in the worst way, they want to convey it to us, but they don't have the physical ability to speak.
That sounds so awful. That sounds like a really awful way to live, like to be so intelligent,
Well,
but not able to like verbalize to
But there
these
are
things,
like,
but yeah.
well, even I believe even not just stroke victims, but probably children that were born without the ability to speak for whatever reason, that but in their mind, much like a person that went blind at age 40, they know what they used to be able to see.
Yeah.
But if you were blind from birth, never saw anything, and here comes another question. If you were blind from birth and never were able to see anything, can you dream?
Here we go.
Oh, I have actually like talked about this one. I don't know because I mean like okay, so they say babies dream, all right, but they only see like from what I understand, they don't see like color, they just see black and white. So like maybe they dream in like black and white.
Let's just
but they wouldn't-
say that they don't. You like you were born
You
and
just
never
never
saw
nothing.
anything. Could you dream? And if you did, what would it look like? Because like any dreams we have, for the most part, I mean, other than maybe being a little weird, it's stuff you know what it looks like.
Right.
So if you never saw anything, how would you be able to have that dreaming process? What would your dream look like?
Or dreams are even about things that like we know and see. Like because I've also heard like babies dream about like angels and stuff or things like that. So maybe like I'm sure they probably still dream, but maybe their dreams are like about like maybe they're a higher being, a sentient being because they can't see, so they're not
So
like
they have
clouded.
a better other sense.
Yes.
Well, maybe, yeah.
Like they're not
Or-
clouded by like what
well,
we
maybe-
can see, and they're like
I guess the
have a
easiest
higher
thing.
connection.
I mean, and you know, if there was somebody I knew that was blind from birth, and I would not be doing this to mock them in any way. It would be honest God curiosity of, do you dream and what do you
Yeah.
dream of?
Yeah.
And if there's anybody out there that, you know, again, this is not making fun of anybody. I'm
We're just
desperately
theorizing and thinking.
curious.
Yeah.
A lot of weird. Mark, you warned me.
Oh, right, I'm going to approach that screen because he has somebody who wrote a little bit of something that I can't see from that.
Too early.
It's all your husband, and he's and he seems to be strongly siding with Paul.
Yes, yeah, I would assume. This is why he's like, don't get Annaruth going on these things.
And I remember,
'cause I can like.
but I remember it was he who volunteered.
He
to come.
did. But he also was like, don't say anything weird. And he also was like, don't bring up flat earthers. And I was like, nope, you know I'm gonna say it now because I'm like, that's a challenge. Like I'll bring it into the conversation.
All right, on a much before Paul totally
Yeah.
stretches out. Your daughter is in a dance competition,
Yes.
and she won or did well. Was she an individual or was she on a team? Or
So she's on a team, and there were 7 other girls, and they started like practicing. They started competition practice